Welcome, everybody. I'm Anthony DiPietro. I'm a graduate of Stony Brook University from 1 year ago and your host for this evening. And thanks for bearing with us starting a couple minutes late. We're all just kind of in the wings celebrating and super excited, and we couldn't stop laughing. Just to check that we're in the right room, this is where the presentation webinar is about how to submit a writing to publishers, right? That's what you all signed up for, right? Just kidding, don't worry if you came here for a reading. That's just the kind of event that I was known for at Stony Brook. But this is a different kind of event. And I want to start with some thank yous. I want to thank Stony Brook University for the tech hosting, broadcasting this event and other support as we planned, as well as for making great content available on YouTube that previously we would have had to travel to the Hamptons to see. So please check that out. And I want to especially thank Frank Imperial, who's the IT at Stony Brook, for running the tech tonight and being so responsive as we planned everything. And I want to thank my fellow beautiful readers for taking the time for a special reunion tonight. You all look amazing, and I know you're going to sound amazing too. And I want to thank our beautiful audience tonight. You know, we write because we have something to say, and that wouldn't be very meaningful if we didn't have people who wanted to listen now and then. So thank you for tuning in. Please, while we're reading, fill the chat room with love next to the YouTube feed, and we will chat right back and give you love right back. I'm just going to start with a short intro, a few words about how tonight came about. A month ago, I hosted a virtual reading as a showcase for a class that I was teaching, and people said it felt both intimate and communal and asked me to put together more readings, which is when I came up with the idea to invite my favorite writers, who are my MFA cohort and friends, to read together. About a week later, I was in the Zoom audience for a reading with Andre Aciman, the writer of Call Me By Your Name, and 4 other queer writers. And that's when I understood what this compliment meant about the event. That was different from any other reading I've been to before or since, because I was in Andre Aciman's house and he was in my house, you know, virtually, but it had that feeling to it. The intimate and the communal are both things we really need right now. You know, we need not to lose the close connection that we have with others, and we need to keep building community. So that's how I want tonight to feel, and we hope that you'll interact with us. We will make time at the end for Q&As at the end of everybody's reading, and we're 12 readers tonight. But feel free to send questions as you think of them, and we may be able to address some of those in the course of the reading as well. We'll stop several times to do some toasts. So if you have a glass in hand at home, we hope that you'll raise a glass with us when we do. I want to add that last week I got to attend the commencement ceremony for this year's MFA graduates, which was for the first time all virtual. And I loved seeing the faces I haven't seen in over a year and hearing everyone's words, sharing their success as graduates and all their good news. And I came away reminded of what I already knew, that I had made a great decision when I went to Stony Brook, that it was the most special MFA program and community I could have ever found. So with that, I'd like to officially bring this meeting to order with the first toast to us, the Stony Brook MFA graduates, on our 1-year anniversary, to our special community of writers. And now we'd like to show you what we do. So each reader tonight has been asked to read something they wrote in the past year since graduating. I'll be briefly introducing each person. And they don't know this yet, but this is also an awards ceremony. In recent weeks, I lobbied the Worldwide Committee on Creative Writing, WWCCW, to hold a special secret virtual meeting to vote on superlative awards for our readers tonight. And let's just say the committee owed me lots of favors. So to introduce our first reader, our first reader tonight is Claudia Acevedo-Quinones. And I loved being in class with Claudia. She is a gifted poet, and she always made me want to be a better poet. And let's see what the committee came up with for her award. Claudia Acevedo-Quinones, best use of dream and superstition. That is Claudia's superpower. And I look forward to hearing her reading tonight.
All right, hi everybody. I have really missed you, and it's lovely to see you all again. So a little bit of what I've been doing since I finished the program. I moved back to Brooklyn, which was extremely difficult. I had to move twice in 10 days, but that's a story for another day. I started sending out my book to small presses, the book being the thesis I wrote while at Stony Brook. And recently I decided that while I wait for those lovely rejections and hopefully a yes from someone, I'd start a new project. And this new project is all about saints and virgins in Catholicism. So this poem I'm going to read it's a prose poem. It's still a work in progress, but it's about Saint Sebastian. It's titled, "At 5 years old, I fell in love with Saint Sebastian. The teacher with the bleeding toenails gathered my hair into a nest with 30 bobby pins. Outside of my leotard and tights, it's 90 degrees with the windows open. I'm told to land on the tips of my toes as if I weighed nothing and felt even less. Told to push it in, what God gave me, but also to jut it out, my chin, as if it were proud to defy him. You see this, Lord? Parents on the other side of the glass, I can hurt with a smile on. I'm nothing but feather, nothing but something that twirls, blind, to a most tragic composition, in a melting island, as if it were snowing outside, as if my country had time for this kind of poetry, the kind that can afford a hunk of cold beef at the end of a point shoe. We're told to hold on to the bar in a perfect row, to move like boards that bend infinitely, to plie once, twice, longer, lower, 3, 4 times, until our legs almost give in, and a cloud of sweat filtered through synthetic pink fabric. We're told to never let them see us shake. I'm 5 and the last one to leave class. My mother takes me to the burger shack overlooking the ocean because she is sorry. We sit under the painting of a boy who is beautiful, pale, and strong. So beautiful that I don't notice someone shot him full of arrows and tied him to a tree until all of my bobby pins are on the floor and it's time to go home. That's it.
Fantastic, Claudia. Thank you so much. You're getting some nice love in the chat already, especially from the class behind us, Valerie Sanfilippo and Lindsay Atkins, and lots of others that we miss. Our next reader tonight is Miranda Beeson, who we also know best as a poet, and she is super willing to experiment into new territory. I think that she tried a little bit of absolutely everything when we were in the program. But the award that she's getting tonight is most dramatic reading voice.
Thank you.
Naturally, being in many classes with Miranda, we all wanted to hear our piece in her voice because that was the best way to hear it. Thank you for being here tonight, Miranda, and we look forward to your reading.
That's so great. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Anthony. And hello, beloved community. What am I doing? I am lucky enough and happy enough to be teaching creative writing and literature to undergrads with our gang at Stony Brook, which just brings me joy, even when I have to do it on Zoom. So you can tell I did a lot of that on Zoom. The poem I'm going to read was just published by Great Weather for Media here in New York City. Thank you. And I'm also reading it because Great Weather for Media published another MFA-er, the most elegant Michelle Whitaker's book, Surge, A Book to Buy, and for a trifecta, published Lindsay Atkins' beautiful poem, The Week Before Me. So Lindsay was up May 3rd. Congratulations, Lindsay. You just graduated, new MFA-er. And then I came up right after her May 10th. So this did my heart so good because it was kind of a Stony Brook, Southampton trifecta. So it just gave me so much pleasure. And one other thing I'll say is that this, speaking of experimental, this poem is from a new book in process in which I've subverted our concept of the portrait page, and I've moved to landscape. So the book is currently titled The Horizontal Project, and the poem looks like this. Try it. It's very freeing, guys. Very freeing. You can just stretch out. It's wonderful. So this is Crown of Thorns. A solo blast of hip hop. A Sunday morning skid into unexpected song. New York City listens for the click of an impatient light. Red, yellow, green. Bronze statues proclaim their ancient triumphs, mustaching on and on the way they always have. Well, we think only in the future tense of who, what, when, where, and why, and try on unfamiliar words like hope and please. The scrape of a trowel and the slice of garden across the way where clusters of daffodils take their last bow towards endless April. The piano next door, 2 fours, a thank you for more than a few occasional notes. I've been waiting for you for years. The number 5 bus sputters itself into yet another endless, destinationless monologue, longing for its depot and its driver's Juliet. A woman lets her Yorkie loose in a patch of park where toddlers used to squeal every day, right by no dogs allowed. I open my view-filled window and holler, we're talking tiny kids. She scoops up her piece of fur, he yips, they scram. Up above, one lone jet sighs a bad John Denver song, its lyrics lost to time, except don't know when I'll be back again. The incessant mosquitoing of tourist helicopters has been swatted into heavenly virus-infected silence. Trees fuzz the thought of future leaves, exchanging long, lanky pheromones. Drizzle replies, mud thrives. Sirens wail, joggers look up, mothers look down. There still and will always be the parking spot foxtrot. 2 teens in gray hoodies swerve by, arm in righteous arm, and the knowledge 6 feet apart was never meant for them. A homeless man saxophones for the love of God and the almighty dollar. I hand it over and make it a $5. Everyone's living their untrue immunity. I've had it, can't get it, won't get it, don't want it, can't give it, will outlive it. There's something to be said for being brought to one's knees. And by the way, the sparrows have taken over. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you guys.
Thank you, Miranda. Our next reader, I couldn't tell you what genre she's going to read, but it's very special that she's here with us because she wasn't able to make it to our in-person commencement. So I'm so glad Lindsay Camp said yes to reading. And a memory that I want to share is that Lindsay had the best movie picks when we had grad school movie night. We got to see things like Amadeus and Harold and Maude, thanks to Lindsay. And Lindsay, too, has a superlative award tonight. So let's see what she won. Most genres, because Lindsay was proficient in short stories, plays, novels, and memoirs, and wrote her thesis in all 4 formats before deciding on one ultimately. Thank you, Lindsay, for being here.
Thank you. So what I've been doing since the end of the program, I'm on a second master's, so I'm totally broke. I am getting my master's in English education for grades 7 through 12 from Buff State. And I have now experienced officially what it's like to have online classes because of the quarantine. Not a huge fan, but interesting. Maybe I'll have to put it under my teacher's belts. And the motivation to do so was at Stony Brook, we had a program called YOP, if anyone participated in that, you remember it. And I actually really fell in love with teaching playwriting to middle schoolers and high schoolers. So hopefully teaching high school will be just as fun. I am going to read, it's really funny that I got the most genres award because I am reading something that I've never done before, which is I've written a kind of fan fiction. I always wanted to write a letter in the perspective of the character who's died from a novel. And so I've written a letter in the perspective of Alaska Young, who dies in the book Looking for Alaska. And she's writing to her teacher who is near death, Dr. Hyde. He has one working lung and he's very old. Let's pull this up. Okay. It is a bit long, so I'm going to read a page of it, and I think that will do. A letter from one Alaska Young to the formidable Dr. Hyde, or my final paper. I heard you put my midterm question up on the board after I was gone, but before you go there, I have to tell you right off the bat that I cannot say why I left. I know this also might be weird, me reaching out to you. I considered with this remarkable chance I've been given to reach out one last time that I should be contacting a more traditional father figure. My father, for instance. I didn't speak much of him or well of him during the months before I left. Note my euphemism. This version of me likes euphemisms for things I would have said more crassly and boisterously when I was alive. Oops, there it is. Alive. Well, honesty is still a fun party trick, even now that I've left the party. And as for mother figures go, there was only the one, and she had been dead for long before I up and left. So I want it to be you, Hyde, who I know from a source I cannot reveal that Culver Creek kids thought I'd kick the bucket instead of me when the news broke. That one working lung thing you've got going for you is pure pathos. I always appreciated that you didn't use it to assert your gendered authority. Sick old man talking here at the front of the room. Don't waste my time. I mean, you did say that to us at the beginning of the year, but I never thought it was patronizing, just true. And yes, even where I am now, we still lament the patriarchy. Though now when it is mentioned, a serenity gradually overcomes us, and some sadness, because it's not our wound anymore. You can miss the things that caused you grief here. It doesn't stop. I don't want to scare you into an early grave with this letter. I'm not impulsive the way I used to be. Where I've gone, there is no reason for impulsivity. The desire is fading from me like the memory of a dream. I now think it's funny how fiercely I clung to that quirk while I was still around. I've thought this out carefully, weighed the possible consequences, and still found that it's the right thing for me to do. And that's one nice thing about where I am now. They'll let you tie a loose end if you really need to. They'll, or maybe it, I'm not sure which yet, will grant you the opportunity for whatever reason they or it has. And Hyde, of all the esteemed Culver Creek teachers I could have reached out to after my permanent leave of absence, it has to be you. I mean, did Madame O'Malley really tell her students to discuss their grief after my passing only in French? How could I trust that crock with something so important? No, but really, I know you're old and not in great shape, but it's not like you have a heart condition. I just can't see what could go wrong here. Like, will you lose your breath when you read this? I doubt it. You teach religion, for Christ's sake. Oops, not supposed to mention people like that, or any of those stories that you teach. There are some rules to this posthumous missive I'm allowed to send. But seriously, I'm not just poking fun. You were as decent a teacher as a student could have, and even though sometimes I caused an uproar in your classes, I always respected you. By the way, forgive me for backsassing you after you threw Pudge out of class last year. I only did it so you could throw me out too. It wasn't a personal affront to you, I just wanted to follow him. That's it.
Oh, this was a challenge I didn't anticipate hosting with the mask on. I'll take it off to introduce our next reader. Next we have Caroline DeLuca, who in addition to being a writer is a super dedicated activist, and I'm grateful for every time I get an email from her about something else that she's doing. And I considered nominating her for most haircuts because she has a different one every time I see, sorry, they have a different one every time I see them. And let's see, Caroline also has a superlative award tonight, so let's see. Best revelations of the future. That is something I super enjoyed about all your writing all the time, Caroline. And we have a real treat in your performance tonight. Let's hear it.
Thank you so much, Anthony. Yes, so since the program, I also moved back to Brooklyn, and I have been doing adult education in homeless shelters. And I, like Anthony said, have also been doing a lot of organizing work, largely around prison abolition and mutual aid, especially in these last 6 weeks or so. And yeah, I am going to be sharing a song so that, as I told Anthony, I can bring my usual political downer stuff, but this time to a happy tune. And I have a content warning that this has a lot of references to gun violence, and a quality warning that I'm very new to playing guitar. And this is called What We Can Bear. We're hurtling head first, tunneling towards our timely demise. Lawyers and line cooks with guard dogs, they find they all can look you in the eyes. Can't trust our keepers, so we grasp on to whatever we believe will keep us safe. Whether that's more laws or more rifles really just depends where you were raised. 9 niece in kindergarten has a school supply list that includes a bulletproof vest. The buckles are shaped like ponies. They hear her heart slamming out her chest. Some say give me liberty or you give me death. Oh, look at the cost in baby's breath. Terror at a movie theater. Whoa, oh, oh. We're hurtling head first, and don't you know, clan hoods are on the rise. Lawyers and line cooks with guard dogs, they find they all can look you in the eyes. Can't trust our keepers, so we grasp on to whatever we believe will keep us safe. Whether that's more laws or more rifles really just depends where you were raised. There's a man in Idaho now, pushing for open carry at the county fair. Take away my land, my kids, my God. My God, is this more than the right fair? We're hurtling head first. They say give me security or you cause my death. Oh, you trust cops and senators to protect everyone and keep us so free. Ooh, ooh. We're hurtling head first, tunneling towards our timely demise. Apocalypse, fantasies, and racists, how our nation's ghosts have come to rise. I'd be remiss not to suggest that we dump New York's finest cops along with every firearm ever held. Fire the commander-in-chief, we could turn over a new leaf, hurtling head first. Whoa, oh, oh, head first, head first. We're hurtling head first. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm not surprised that you are tackling yet another way of expressing yourself so bravely. I appreciate it. And we've had a third of our readers go, so I think it's time for another toast. And this one is to our beautiful audience. And readers, please make sure you check into the YouTube chat because it's amazing all the love we're getting. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. To you. And it's my distinct pleasure to introduce our next reader, who is Natalie De Paz. Natalie is such a special person, and as a person in the program, she was the one who always saw the best in people and was always fully supportive, and which is the spirit of Stony Brook, but she did it best, always lifted everybody up. And she also has a superlative coming tonight, and I'm sure you're going to agree that she deserves most versatile and visual. I knew for sure that she was going to come dressed as what she's reading tonight. So thank you, Natalie, for always being super creative and thinking about those visuals.
Thank you, Anthony. You're amazing. I love you. Thank you for putting this together. Thank you, Frank, for teching for us. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Hello. In the past year, if you don't know, I live in Pittsburgh now. And mainly what's new is I've been doing improv. I work part-time at an improv theater and take classes and perform at Steel City Improv Theater. Shameless plug, we can't have shows now, so everybody follow us on Instagram, follow our Twitch. We're streaming new shows every Friday and Saturday at 8 p.m. So check that out. My friends are funny, okay? My friends are funny. Come watch us. And before I jump in, my dog is crying if you can hear her in the background. She's like, Mom, pay attention to me. Before I jump in, I just want to say the other thing that's new, I picked up an instrument as well, like Caroline. I just started piano lessons like 2 weeks ago. I mentioned that in this micro essay I'm about to read. And I also started working at a grocery store in October. So I just want to dedicate this piece to my coworkers. Poker face. During the pandemic, I work at a grocery store. People don't mind waiting in line outside as much when the weather is nice. On one such sunny day, a mother brings her baby in with her, and they come to my register. The baby locks eyes with me. I smile and realize the baby can't see it because I am wearing a mask and matching scrunchie. The baby probably hasn't seen anyone but their parents smile for months now, maybe a quarter of their life. I imagine life after the pandemic. I imagine the baby crying at strangers' bald faces, the way they do in those viral videos of fathers who shave off their burly beards. I share with my coworkers often in the fact that we are not only forced to behave as though things are mostly normal, but we uphold a sense of normalcy for our customers, for our community. On my Saturday, which is actually Thursday, my friend Heather brings me an old Casio around 3 p.m. She doesn't wear a mask. I do. I want to hug her, but instead wave my arms around on the sidewalk at her and squint my eyes really hard to show her I am smiling. She compliments my shirt, a colorful Goodwill treasure whose print resembles a Monet pawn scene. Before she arrives with the piano, though, I text her to ask if it is for keepsies, because I'm a child who wants to believe she can truly have something. The keyboard belonged to Heather's former neighbor. It sat in their hall for a year after the neighbor moved out, and now Heather is giving it to me. I carry the piano and the stand for it into my elevator and over to my apartment. I wipe it down with Clorox wipes, which I am doubtful is necessary, but have to do to quiet the headlines echoing in my brain. The keyboard has a crack in its back that endears it to me instantly, as well as fun, outdated preset songs and tones. Within the next hour, Heather's kind face is on my computer screen. She teaches me, graceful as Julie Andrews, cool as a cucumber, patient as a saint, C-G-A-D. She says, F spells face. My neurons fire on all cylinders. I almost cry from the sheer joy of barely making music, because I am a child who wants to believe she can truly be anything. Within the next hour, I send her a video of me singing along to a simple chord progression of a Lady Gaga song. I heard someone on a podcast say, some people plan their lives and others walk the path turn by turn. I manage one foot in front of the other most days, but if I had a pillar of salt for each time I looked back, everyone I ever loved would be chained to Hades' pinky nail. Within the next 48 hours, on my Monday, which is actually Saturday, I am back at work at a grocery store during the pandemic, wearing a uniform shirt I bedazzled myself, what some would call a normal day. Of course, I am an adult who knows nothing is truly for keepsies. I keep looking for smiles behind the masks, for kind eyes and good body language. I will cry when the masks come off, the kind of cry where you can't quite catch your breath until you take a deep sigh. Fuck capitalism.
Thank you, Natalie. And I just was checking out the chat and wanted to go back and say that Lindsay Camp got a shout out from Will Chandler and says, Yop misses you. And he thanks you for the Yop shout out. Next, I get to introduce someone who's very near and dear to me, myself. I'm a poet who's been living in Boston since graduating from the program, and I work as associate director of a modern and contemporary art museum. And tonight I'll be reading a piece that is going to be published in a forthcoming publication, a pandemic issue of a magazine called Guest House. Oh, I forgot to reveal my superlative because I do have one. Submissions beast. That was definitely what I cared about the most in grad school, and I think I probably still hold that title, at least of those reading tonight. I see a lot of enthusiastic thumbs up. So the poem that I'm reading is called Night Owl. I understood young that some people go to bed early and some stay up late, perhaps preferring to fall asleep with the gray-blue haze and hush of television voices, head nodding back against couch cushions, mouth gaping wide, because of my father, the first type of person, and my mother, the second kind, and my Nana, asleep in a chair in the den, who claimed she needed 2-3 hours a night and cat naps by day, which she mostly denied, and her husband, the one who brought breakfast. Mornings belonged, I guess, to the first kind. If I thought about it, I could picture their calm time, their tables of eggs that made me gag, their orange juice, coffee and newspaper, their windows made of light. In my teen years, my father became insomniac. His worries manifested in winter attempts to heat the house using only a wood-burning stove he loved so much he named it Magnus. And in summer, he became obsessed with watermelons, not by day, his belly full of fresh shellfish from the bay, but at night, he took the biggest knife he had and lobbed a green gourd in half, spooned pink flesh into his mouth, and wrapped the other half for later. The other half was always gone by morning, and by now you have guessed the nature of this shrewd observer of the house's breathing patterns, Myself, I was always the second kind of person. Midnight was mine, and I knew that night owlhood was a lonely thing. And I guessed if I was going to spend this much time alone, I had better become a writer, which scared me. Night, even in its beauty, is fearsome by nature, is it not? It is what hides what lurks within it. It is when we expect the worst we can imagine can happen. We never want to go it alone, so we stalk the hallways, checking window locks like ghosts of ourselves. Even as a child, I knew it was possible to die in my sleep, according to the prayer, before I wake. For years, I wrote at the top of my page, beside the date, after midnight, a habit to note the difference between day and date, to recognize the marker in time between days is the dark in which I write. My friend, the many-shaded dark behind heavy curtains, in this room where I'm still the writer I became, and still I am alone as an I, but now less absurdly afraid. Thank you. And now I want to pause to say that a couple of our readers tonight couldn't make it. Marian Donahue couldn't make it, and Stephanie Osmanski couldn't make it. You know, the life in quarantine times can be unpredictable. So people had just got busy and could not join us. But I was going to mention when we introduced Marian that she and Claudia also really deserve a Speedy Gonzalez Award because they started a year later than most of us and still finished in May 2019, which was their goal, and which was not an easy feat. And that was also my lead into another toast. So get your glasses ready. This one is for our advisors and the professors who got us across the finish line. And I'm so glad that some of you are on the chat, and so glad that we got to know you and that we had the benefit of your going before us. Thank you to the professors. Our next reader is also a poet, Nancy Keating. And my memory of Nancy is that she had a lot of self-deprecating humor, and we always were laughing in class. She also has a superlative award to present tonight.
You're killing me. That's funny.
You never had to try, Nancy. You make it look so easy.
Oh, God.
Can't wait to hear you read.
Okay. That's fantastic. Well, where do I start? Okay, so yeah, well, okay, so since we were done with 1 semester worth of TA experience, I got myself hired as a last-minute addition to Farmingdale State College as an adjunct professor 6 days before the semester started, with no syllabus, no nothing. It's like here, and I'm like, wouldn't you like to interview me first? So it was really like a dicey thing, but they've had me now for a year, and they want me back for the second year. So that's so yeah, kind of cool. They're nice. And of course, the Zoom classes, crazy. I'd really love my students. I worry about where they are all the time. Anyway, so I am digging out an old manuscript that I started before the MFA program, and it has a lot to do with like a grammar concept. And so here is the grammar of abuse of power. It's a very flexible concept, by the way. Gotta have, okay. So the grammar of abuse of power. Now, this was before my first marriage. I just moved back to the city and had a job in the financial district, a completely sweltering day. This one noontime, I took the subway up to Midtown to get a particular kind of frame from Lee's art shop, which isn't there anymore. So many places aren't there anymore. And what can we say about our own changed selves? Deep. Anyway, I come out of the R train at 7th Avenue and 57th, and here's Donald Trump walking along the sidewalk with about 2 or 3 people from his office, I guess. Of course, I knew who he was. Anyone would, from page 6 in the Post. He's very tall. And back then, he actually wasn't bad looking. I wasn't so bad myself. And there was a hot breeze from somewhere below me, and my dress fluttered a little. It was a peach gauze cotton, I remember it. And he looked at me, and I looked at him. And right then I thought, Ivana's in trouble. It was that long ago. And sure enough, within the year, he left her for Marla. Now, you never know how things might have worked out differently. Call it the butterfly effect. I'm pretty confident I'm not his type, although the word was any white chick was his type. I could have done some sacrificial Joan of Arc thing and said something, held his look, maybe made a joke, but it was 90 whatever degrees and I was feeling neither playful nor psychic. Still, think about it. I might have saved everyone a world of trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And did you forget to tell us some news about a book or something?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Wednesday morning, I woke up and there was this email on my thing. There's a publisher named Elixir Press. They're publishing White Chick. And okay, White Chick is like my thesis plus or minus a couple of poems. Like September. So now I have to get a cover, I have to get someone to do a cover and I have to round up a couple of blurbs. So, and the contract, I'm so happy.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm sure that the project is going to be maddening and you'll love it at the same time. And I'm so excited.
I mean, like, you know.
Wonderful work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Lucinda Kempe. And I didn't have any classes with Lucinda actually while we were in grad school, but I know I've heard her read, and I know that she sort of is reinventing Southern Gothic writing and to be able to tell stories from life, or maybe reinventing, maybe translating a Southern Gothic life into her own unique writing style. We'll hear. And we have a superlative award for Lucinda as well.
Okay. Always really goes there. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's nice. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm really glad to see I'm really glad to see your faces. I'm glad everybody is well. I'm glad we're here. Momming, gardening, writing, the memoir I put on the back burner. I think I'm like rewriting it in a series of short creative nonfiction pieces. I had 4 published in March at Matter Press, which is edited by Randall Brown, who's a really terrific flash fictionist. It's called the ECT series. So I'm going to read one of those called Turnip Bake. A SWAT team was brought in. How I got from our house to the Stony Brook psychiatric ward, I can't tell. I have no recollection. None at all. How I got my clothes, shampoo, hand cream, and panty liners in the hospital is a mystery. Electroconvulsive therapy fries your memory, even if it helps depression. I had 9 treatments. I didn't like the ECT doctor or his smarmy, overeager, "How are you today?" every time we were rolled into the therapy room. He charged our insurance $2,500 per treatment. I felt like a guinea pig, and I have no idea who decided to sign me up for the tune-up, but there I was, flat on my back with the nurse searching for a vein in my 61-year-old arms. Weeks later, I still have a yellowed bruise from all that poking. My psychiatrist warned me I might have a relapse if I discontinued too soon. So be it. I decided to try just the meds and avoid the triggers that set off the depression before isolation, too much booze, and catastrophizing my memoir I imagined was a failure. The doctor suggested psychotherapy. Next time I visit him at headquarters, I'll tote along the 68,000-word tome, tell him, I spent 10 years writing about my life with my dysfunction junction, what's your unction family in a broken down house in the Garden District. I'll be guillotined before I go over that with anyone again. Not even Jesus Christ, if he begged me. Be worse than the third degree. I lived it. The thought of publishing it made me cry. The publishing industry are motherfuckers. They want 25-page book proposals of what you're going to write for them before you write it, and then tell you what to write. Maybe I wrote it to let it go. Maybe I just needed a break. Or maybe I wanted the world to love me and to tell me I was okay. Thank you.
So fabulous, Lucinda. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And our next reader is Matt Lehman, who is a gifted fiction writer. And I know he's on the edge of his seat because he wants the Best Beard Award from the International Committee on Creative Writing. He's going to get to show off that beard in a minute. And he also could have gotten the Best Dad Award in this group because his little one was born while we were in the program. But I'll let him introduce himself. Well, first we'll see what the superlative award is.
Hey, you never know.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you, Anthony. Yeah, so since graduating, I've been stay-at-home dad for a now almost 3-year-old boy. Takes up a lot more time than you would think, but yeah. So and doing various freelance gigs and working on my novel, which you will now hear part of. The two of them used to watch old westerns together in bed late at night on a tiny black and white TV set. They would sit propped against the headboard with the ashtray between them or lie in each other's arms as the picture flickered and shifted. Fine details were impossible to make out in the fuzzy dance of poor reception. Images were stripped to their bare essentials: framing, composition, the camera eye's roving gaze across desert sands, the cumulative tumbling grammar of montage, the primal play of light and shadow. In which she was fluent and in which he knew a few odd phrases. While Jess parsed the variations of close, medium, and wide shots like verb conjugations, casting about for their deeper meaning, Chick's appreciation of the cowboy genre was mainly characterological. He would sneer and rasp his way through an imitation of the Lee Marvin heavy, ashing his cigarette over her shoulder. Jess taught him to also recognize the fluid grandeur of those wide-open Monument Valley crane shots, along with their opposite numbers, moody, angular, low-ceilinged interiors that loomed cage-like overhead. That was a long time ago, when a tiny TV in a bungalow at the edge of LA had been enough, when the space between them had been more easily traversable, before it widened into a canyon and all the old rope bridges gave out. Jess had been living out here for 3 years, hadn't shared a bed or a TV set or a name or anything else with Chick in almost twice as many. Life carried on like a rough cut with a draggy second act, plot threads that dead-ended, small dramas that refused to reach a satisfying conclusion. She took freelance jobs, she drove Henry to school. She still watched old westerns on TV, now with Richard snoring beside her in blessed oblivion. He could sleep through anything: gunfights, tragic moral reversals, blaring Ennio Morricone scores. She loved these movies in their unwavering devotion to form, the way they invited the viewer to read the underlying patterns, and maybe in doing so, begin to make some sense of it all. So on that late morning, as she sat in a folding chair on the fragile crust of lawn at the front of the house, cowering in an ever-diminishing sliver of shade, holding a slide viewer up to the sky, and forcing herself to look at the new film she'd shot, and knowing that none of them were keepers, that none of them had been keepers for a long time now. Richard playing with Henry out back, and her wondering for the zillionth time that morning what exactly the point of it all was. When Jess lowered the slide viewer's eyepiece and let her eyes refocus on the horizon, what she saw was not the muted chrome gleam of a motorcycle hurtling through a cloud of pale yellow dust, nor the faint outline of her ex-husband, her son's father, hunched over the handlebars, nor even the uneasy smile that showed as he got closer, Chick looking out of his element, riding toward his old life on 2 wheels instead of away from it on 4, and wearing a white hat no less. What she saw was a wide shot of mountains dotted with scrub brush in the heat of the dry season, the sky a washed out faded blue, and the dust particles dotting her field of vision like the coarse grain of old film. It was the scene in the picture where the disgraced outcast dares to show his face in town again. Whether he'd come to make belated amends or to find redemption through heroism, or only to beg yet another favor from the good townspeople, they would find out soon enough. And if this one was anything like the others, they were sure to be in an almighty fix by the end of the second reel. Thank you.
Great job, Matt. Thank you so much. And our next reader requires a little bit of explanation because he did not graduate when we graduated 1 year ago tonight. He graduated a year before that, but Tyler Allen Penny has lived in the Hamptons since something like 2010. So he is an honorary member of every class that has come through Stony Brook since then. And now he's teaching. So he's a friend to all. He's the glue that holds everyone together. He's a reason a lot of us came to Stony Brook because he was there on visiting day and stuff. And all of that is true, but I got the committee to give him the award I think he would want if there was a drop-down menu of superlatives. This is the one I think Tyler would choose. He's dying of laughter, so he can't read right now.
That's absolutely fucking fabulous and 100% true. I will die a peasant and be famous after I'm long gone. I'm totally fine with that. Okay. I'm sorry. That's going to go on my tombstone whenever I die. Anthony, I leave that up to you to make sure that you put that on there. In fact, I leave all of my my Bette Midler collection to you as well, just so you know. Don't let anyone take it away from you. So I would like to first off thank Anthony for putting this together and to give you guys a little backstory. So I did graduate a long time ago, and I feel sometimes like a little ghost that's like floating around in the Hamptons, but a ghost that is friendly, kind of like Casper. It's totally fine. I am here kind of like an honorary member of last year because I did hang out with all of you guys almost seemingly endless. So like Miranda, I now teach for Stony Brook, teaching undergrads, poetry, creative writing, all that stuff. And it's phenomenal and wouldn't change it for anything. It's what gets me up in the morning. And, you know, that being said, you guys having left and moved off to other places or just too far away over than an hour, because I'm not going to travel an hour to see you. I'll just, at this point, just Zoom you. I miss you so much. And I've written a poem, and I don't know if I ever told any of you this, like maybe like 2 of you guys, a poem that was about all of our many escapades going into the city about 90s night. For those of you who don't know, there was 90s night at the Bell House. That was a lot of fun for all of us to go into and get sloshingly drunk at, and just dance out to 90s hits. This poem has subsequently been published by Typishly under a different name, under the another version. But I went through with a number of people from this group chat, Nat and Caroline, thank you. While I was at a residency, went through it and reworked it. So I'm going to read that one. It's called The Leftovers. In a Brooklyn warehouse, a murder of angels lounge on black leather love seats. Their cloud-chained collars of bells chime with each golden-rung 90s head-night headbang. Liquored coos from a mouthy pair of legs, flown up from the south, flutter from ear to ear around the bar, overwelcomed yet in demand. Her flight patterns erratic in the dark room. She swears by her mother's ghost, names each living star that listens the sun, and lays claim to how they've come to light. All soul, no faith. On the velvet couch, a deep-cut cowboy draped over the armrest, an unnamed galaxy bordered by bold lines of a 5-point star on his chest. With a wrist flick like Prometheus, he snaps blocks of smoke with aerial check marks, like emptying a bucket list. Quick Tinder / grinder / bumble / scruff update from the bar edge. Cancer in search of a new set of wings, a fresh face, feeling frisky, ready to lunge off the balcony ledge. If you like water, you already like 72% of me. Heads loll seemingly weightless in the grimed mirrors of a Sharpie-scraped bathroom. We spit mouthfuls of failure, each other's light shuttled into noses, hands numbly slapping the concrete wall. Oh, how the body deepens, gasps inward at the first touch, and supernovas like the faith of fireflies, a million souls signaling to be seen. And as both have predicted with their bodies, soon I will forget how their voices swell like a choir's prayer, like a heart's flatlining falsetto, and my own now longingly pumping for another. I've merely made true their prophecy of empty chairs at my morning table. I so desperately want you to hear not just my words, but all the silence left in their tracks, to feel your whole body lit up as if you've lost a wallet or a child, the everything of you now made starkly piecemeal. There the missing vessel will come to mind, and you'll have filled it with me. Thank you.
And in honor, in recognition of Tyler being an honorary member of every class, I think this next toast we'd like to dedicate to all the other classes, all the other alumni of the Stony Brook MFA program who came before us, as well as this class that just graduated a week ago. We love you. We're so glad you're with us online. Thank you for everything. And we have 2 readers left. And the next reader is Zinnia Smith, who is, she could have gotten the superlative for being the most disciplined writer, because every time I ask her what she's doing, the answer is writing. But I didn't want to upset anybody else. So we talked about a different superlative with the committee.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm actually very honored by that superlative. Thank you, Anthony. So it's funny that you say that, because the project I'm actually going to read from tonight is very much more a traditional timeline. But I'll talk a bit about what I've been up to in the last year, which is I'm still working at the law school Monday through Friday, but what's really brought me joy is on the weekends, I get to teach writing at Bunker Hill Community College. So I've been doing that for the past year, and it's really been a fantastic experience. I've met a lot of really excellent people, really talented writers. And I should also mention that I have made kind of a genre change in the last year. So I've been spending a lot of time writing short stories and fiction in general. So what I'm going to read for all of you tonight is actually the beginning of a novel. All right. So the chapters are named after the characters, and the first chapter is Penelope Grace Smith. Grace found beginnings both particular and unclear, and because of this, they were a relentlessly cruel concept to her. Over the course of her life, she'd thought of 100 ideas and had seen none of them come to fruition. The nights in Spanish Harlem were charming, but almost to their detriment. Stars in the sky were no longer seen in the city. They were replaced with 24-hour McDonald's with walk-up windows and the sounds of cars and trains and couples fighting and children playing, and sometimes many languages conversing all at once. The first date was a walk on a cold fall day in November. They went all the way to Columbia's edge before the park and the stairs, the same place where the next summer, a student who happened to be white and who happened to be a woman was stabbed in a mugging and died at the top of the steps. Grace's mother would call her and tell her what had happened, but her voice was really saying, see, didn't I tell you about that place? But this day in late fall, when snowdrifts were just about to crack the sky with frost, they sat down on a park bench together. Adam set his head in her lap, and they talked about people who owned apartments in the city, the plastic sunglasses sold on Malcolm X Boulevard, the beats and pedophilia. Melted ice cream stuck onto the sidewalk under them. They passed between them a tall boy in a paper bag and large fries and a red cup. When it was dark, they ordered an Uber and took it down to the Lower East Side for a jazz show. The city was fine. It was beautiful, in fact. They drank martinis and didn't talk over the music. After, they took the subway back uptown, the seats orange and yellow and the lighting like a slow cooking oven, which made her body feel all warm and rocked gently, orange rocking. She had no words to describe the Christmas lights strung across 116th Street, swaying in the wind and the dark, strung up once a year. No words except romantic, and to her, it was a terrible, sentimental word she avoided speaking. Grace knew she liked Adam because in the morning, when he bumped into the pretty bartender he knew from Washington Heights, while they waited for her train out of Penn, the bartender gave him a hug and Grace began to hate her. She shook her hand and smiled. There was nothing like a feeling with an edge to verify what was ahead for them. Now, she could only reconsider that night while staring at her peeling ceiling. In a city 2 hours northeast, where the people in their neighborhood did not collect in common places, where she hated the people, all clinging to their sameness, their language, and their arrogance about an old life on a hill, she felt confident that always she would hate men by the end. At least any man she had once tried or would try to love. You're nothing but a white woman who knows enough about the world to feel guilty, Ahmed said. And she realized he had been talking to her while she was laying prostrate. She turned her head slightly to consider him from where she lay. There was nothing impressive about him, she decided. Nothing in his looks, and poor thing, he wasn't much for conversation. In fact, she hated him. Begrudgingly, she stood up and reached for her jeans. He was right, of course, but it hurt her less because she wasn't married to him. You'll stay for dinner then? She asked him once she dressed. I was going to make pasta. Could you do me a favor and run out for a bottle of wine? She didn't want to have another fight. They took too much energy, and she knew she needed all of it for Adam if he returned. That's it.
Thank you, Zinnia, for beautiful writing. Did you, I don't know if it's a secret, but did you make any major life decisions after you left the MFA program?
I did. I eloped. I got married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. His name's Amit and he's wonderful.
And Zinnia lives the next town over, so I can confirm that. We are down to our last reader of the night, last but not least, far from least. And she's already fanning herself because she knows what I'm going to say. She was up for the superlative of hottest prom date, but she got a different superlative. But before we go there, I just want to say that I wanted to call her, as a writer, Bukowski in a sundress, but that's been said about another writer. So in the future, people will say she was Lily Wann in a sundress, or somebody else was Lily Wann in a sundress. So she's just Lily Wann. And here's her superlative.
Wow. Thank you. I don't know what you mean, but obviously, yeah. So since the MFA, I met this prince, had a sea witch give me legs. She took my voice for a minute. We fell in love. My dad finally approved. I'm just kidding. Sorry, the hair. But no, so I moved back to Mississippi. It's super humid and Mississippi-y. Been laid off because of COVID. I was a server at a restaurant, but been having a lot of fun doing other stuff anyway, playing ukulele, watercoloring, just having a good time generally. But so this is something that honestly a lot of people like. This is something a little new. It's sort of a darker poem for me actually, so I'm gonna give like a small trigger warning for like emotional abuse, which, you know, let's end on that. Good times. But anyway, this is called, and this is actually interesting because I think Lindsay had the Looking for Alaska reading, and hers talks about a teacher, Mr. Hyde, and this is actually called Mr. Hyde, as in like, you know, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, you get it. Anyway, so he wanted to crack me open like an egg and soak the yolk up with himself. I painted his portrait in raw honey, licked my fingers, and marveled at the taste of his face. We existed in each other. Sorry, that is my dog. We existed in each other more than we did alone, and it just made sense. Until slowly, he changed. His charisma fell to scraps of paper. His smile a sneer. His arms shifted from safety nets to beehives. Sociopath, lacking empathy, childish, then bitch. All became new terms of endearment. I justified his words made of liquor when he drenched me with them. Our affection became toxic, a monster we couldn't control anymore, sentient in its destruction. I worshipped at the altar of paranoia after he told me the world would always be a worse place as long as I was alive. Thanks. Thank y'all. Sorry, it's super dark, but I can finish with a joke if it helps. I don't have a joke, I'm sorry. Google it.
There's that sense of humor we love you for, Lily. I actually, it looks like I've drained my glass, but I did want to end on one more toast to all of us for getting through this reading, and thank you to those who stuck around for all of it. Cheers, everybody. And we have a little time left if anybody wants to throw any questions our way. We'll sort of wait for the chat to catch up. We're just getting a lot of lovely work. Great job. And everybody's glad to see everybody.
Totally. Go through.
And the reason I changed into a bathrobe was in recognition that it was going a little overtime. No, just kidding. This was my uniform in grad school. When I put this on, people knew that it was my bedtime, and this is also secretly the source of all my power as a writer. So.
Ah.
So there's that question answered.
Okay, so your superpower is saying good night. So I will buy into that, and I will say good night also. And thank you so much. And I'm so glad I was here. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Hey, you guys. Love you. Bye.
We're getting questions about our drinking. If anybody wants to say what they're drinking or what they're drinking,
someone wants to know why it's so much,
or if drinking is related in any way to your writing process.
No, the process is in the morning. The drinking is at nighttime. How do I check out?
Leave meeting.
You leave. Okay.
Leave.
All right.
Bye.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you.
Bye. Also, hi, Mom. Wherever. My mom's here. Hey, Mom.
We do have another question.
Hi,
which
Lily's
is,
mom.
Does anybody want to talk about how their writing process has changed with quarantine, if it has at all?
Ooh.
No, I mean, I'm a diarist, so I never, and writing is so solitary. So there's always so I always write in a diary, and I'm part of a writing group. So thank God. So no.
This is my writing process. I just have bits of paper all over my house, and that's it. It's never changed since I was 5.
Do you transcribe it?
Yeah, I can't write like I can't type straight onto the computer. I have to write it down, and then yeah, and then as you transcribe, you edit. You know.
Right.
Feel that, Claudia. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I've been recording myself.
Me 3, same thing. It's the power of the brain to the physicality of the brain to the pen or the pencil is so different than the keyboard. Got to start with the pencil.
I am composing on a typewriter, which is new for me, thanks to Zinnia, who gave me a typewriter for Christmas, which is like the best gift I ever got. And I also—
We're still getting one next year.
Oh, yay.
With typewriters. You get a typewriter. You get a typewriter.
Everyone look under your chair.
I also found that I kind of invented a form for my quarantine poems, and that helped me because I didn't have to think about that part. It helps me just go. But that's the main thing that's changed for me. We also had a question about what we're reading, and that's inspiring us during quarantine.
Oh my gosh. Sorry.
I've been reading almost entirely queer magical realist young adult novels.
Middlemarch. I'm doing the full cathedral of it.
I read Wheat Bitter because coming from like the restaurant industry, it's a really good book and it makes me miss work so much.
Guys, I'm diving in deep with C.D. Wright and Lucy Brock-Broido, and I can't recommend both reading them simultaneously enough. It's been the most fantastic time in my life right now.
I just finished reading yesterday Another Country by James Baldwin, and this, and then A Raisin in the Sun I've read like 4 times in the last year, and I can't get enough of it.
I'm reading Bad Behavior, Mary Gateskill.
Ooh.
And Good People, Robert Lopez, who was interviewing for a position for this class that I'm teaching, a 190 this fall, and the class is entitled Bad Behavior.
Miranda, I think you should write a combo of Good People, Bad Behavior.
There you go. That's what I'm on.
I'm reading Imaginary Museums.
Oh my God, I love Imaginary Museums.
I've been reading it for like a month now. I haven't finished it because I don't know what's been going on with me. I can't finish a book for the life of me, but it's lovely. And they're very strange short stories. So if anyone is interested in reading something short that they can get through, I think it's nice, like when you're under a lot of stress and you don't really know what to do with yourself and you don't want to dedicate yourself to like a whole novel. Reading short stories, they're still really inspiring and strange, can spark something in you. So yeah, recommend it. Haven't finished, but highly recommend.
While everyone's quiet, I just want to say hi to Joe, Grayson, Hatch, Dace, my mom. That's it, I think. Just those are people that have like texted me during this and saying they're watching. And Zach. Also Zach. Sorry, Zach.
Thank you. Anybody else have any love they want to give as people are starting to log off?
Just thank you, Anthony. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Anthony, for putting this together. Wonderful superlatives.
Yeah, we should do it again. It's wonderful. It's good.
Thank you so much.
I'm sending a shout out to Laura and Sarah Bogan. I hope to see you on the beach, and Lalo, and anybody else who's out there. To the word. It's been so great to hang out with you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. I feel human again. You know, I was kind of losing it a little bit there, right?
Love
Yes, I
you,
love this
Miranda.
Absolutely. Wait a minute. Okay. All right.
Should we all do it?
Yeah, we can all do it.
This is our part.
Here, follow the follower.
Lily's just going to keep texting, but we'll all do this.
Wait, what are we doing?
Sending hearts.
Y'all know I'm the ADD one.
It's been a huge pleasure and a thrill to read with you guys, as it always is, and I knew it would be, and I hope we get to do this again.
Yeah.
And thank you all so much for sharing your words.
Applause for Anthony. Everybody on mute. Thanks, Anthony.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.